The Catholics of Oz is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to episode 7 of Catholics of Oz. Catholics of Oz is a show where we discuss faith, culture, and what's been happening from an Aussie perspective. Whether it's synods or science, apostolates and apps, providence or productivity, you can hear it right now on the Catholics of Oz. Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Catholics of Oz. My name is Lindsay Sand. I'm the host of this show, and joining me today is Jerry. Jerry, how you going?
Very well, very well. Yourself, Linz?
Yeah, I'm going pretty good, although let me say that as I'm looking out the window as we're podcasting today, it seems like the Aussie weather is turning miserable and autumn is truly upon us now.
Yeah, we've lost our Aussie summer and now we're going to head to our Victorian winter, which is wet, cold and miserable. Probably the same things our brothers and sisters over in America have been complaining about for the last 6 months.
Yes, that's right. So I've been listening, yeah.
But hopefully not as bad. I've been hearing a lot of negatives and Fahrenheits, and that's exceptionally cold. I don't think we don't manage to do it there. We do it in moderation.
Yeah, we don't get snow, fortunately, although I know that Father Corey was talking about snow, and I think I've seen some photos from Dom on Facebook in recent months where he's had snow on his street. I could be wrong about that. But our American friends on SQPN are certainly talking about the weather getting warmer, and that certainly won't be the case for us for the next couple of months. So it's strange thinking that they have a warm Easter coming up, and we have a very cold Easter that we're used to here.
Well, it gets like that, but it's polar opposites at Christmas.
Yes, well, that's true. Yeah, we have the hot Christmas. Yeah, we don't know what a white Christmas looks like, do we? All right, so let's roll on. Let's start by talking about Faith Beyond Borders.
Well, I'm actually feeling rather good about this. I think we've all arrived at a very special place, eh? Oh. Spiritually, ecumenically.
How do you make somebody love you without affecting free will?
Welcome to my world, son. If you come up with an answer to that one, you let me know.
Yes, I had to work very hard to pass Latin and theology.
Oh, quite. Those are, of course, the most important things.
Oh, yeah.
So, Jerry, today we've got 2 stories that we want to talk about in terms of Faith Beyond Borders. This is our segment where we talk about people who evangelize and share the faith in ways that are a bit more beyond what we would normally expect of people. So today we actually wanted to pay tribute to Deacon Boniface, who is actually Australia's first Indigenous bishop. And he was, sorry, not bishop, I meant to say deacon.
Just deacon.
Deacon, sorry, promoted. That was a massive promotion. But sorry, our first Indigenous permanent deacon, who was ordained as a deacon shortly after the Second Vatican Council. And he died just last week at the age of 82. So his life was pretty amazing because as part of his diaconate, he actually met 3 popes, starting with Pope Paul VI. He then met Pope John Paul II, and he also met Pope Benedict XVI. So he's had a pretty amazing career. He's also an Indigenous elder in the Kardu Diminan clan, and he's a traditional owner of the land around Port Keats, which is where a lot of his ministry was. A lot of wonderful things were reported about him. He spoke to the Australian bishops one year, and apparently gave them a really moving presentation about Indigenous spirituality. He even helped John Paul II celebrate Mass in Alice Springs, which is the Australian Red Centre here, in the year 1986, when Pope John Paul II came to Australia. Jerry, can you remember at all Pope John Paul II coming to Australia in 1986?
1986, I was 2.
Yep.
2 going on 3. I get told what I was doing it then, and that was apparently throwing things off a balcony.
I was just going to say you were just throwing toys at your siblings or something. Yeah. I was actually, I think I was 4 or 5 years old, and we actually went to the MCG, which is the Melbourne Cricket Ground. It's the big stadium here in Melbourne, where some of the big AFL matches here happen. And we did go to see him, and I just have vague images of being there in massive crowds. I actually don't remember what happened because I was so young, but I do remember that we did go to see it. But anyway, moving on to Deacon Boniface again. He was very influential and very well known. Archbishop Christopher Prowse, who we've both met in previous years, I should say, He said that he lived his diaconal vocation in complete service to others, and he was the epitome of the diaconal ministry, so widely regarded for his preaching in his native language and developing the faith community around the Port Keats area. What do you think of this story, Jerry?
Excellent. I mean, Port Keats is pretty, well, from Northern Territory, and that's probably one of our largest area masses by state and smallest number of population. Predominantly or largely populated by the Indigenous community of Australia, the Aboriginals. And where he was based in Port Keats it's not close to Darwin, and Darwin's basically the only city that would be called the name. The rest did more call settlement. So he's remote. Father Corey might have something in common in that respect to him.
Yes.
But Aboriginals and the Dreamtime has been touched on by others in SQPN podcasts. They're a spiritual people, the Aboriginals, and for an Aboriginal elder to have taken the step across to Catholicism, it's a great thing to see and a great thing to hear.
Yeah, I think so too. And there's a good relationship between our Indigenous brothers and sisters and also the Catholic Church. A lot of movements towards recognition, justice, because we have a lot of issues still with our Indigenous brothers and sisters in terms of things like the average life expectancy and a lot of social issues. So the church is certainly boots on the ground when it comes to those things. Fun fact for you: the Australian Catholic Church apologised to the Indigenous Australians. I think at least 5 to 10 years before Australia's national apology. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
It's good to know we're at the forefront of an issue like that.
Yeah. So, and we're not, we certainly haven't solved problems for our Indigenous brothers and sisters, but like I said, there certainly is a close relationship between the church and between them. And in fact, we have seen, Aboriginals, many who have become Catholic and who have done wonderful things for the church in Jesus' name. So, here's to the work of Deacon Boniface and a tribute to him for the wonderful things that he did. So, Jerry, I'm going to throw it over to you now because the second story we wanted to talk about in terms of faith going beyond borders, and I would say well beyond borders in this story. It's a beautiful and inspiring one about the Kenyan science teacher, Brother Peter Tabichi, who won a global prize. So, Jerry, tell us all about him.
All right, so the global prize is the Vaki Foundation Global Teacher Prize for 2019. So already you've got some affinity for this guy, except for the fact that he's obviously pipped you for the prize.
Yes, yes.
Now, he's a member of the Franciscan religious order, and this Global Teacher Prize it's been set up about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's $1 million award to a teacher who makes an outstanding contribution to the profession of teaching. And so I think this is its 5th year. And having had a look at the previous winners, they all seem like really good people, but I'm going to call it Peter Tabichi is probably the cream of the crop. So let me tell you a bit about him. So he's from Kenya. I was going to say Nairobi, but that's just the capital. It's not where he's based. Kenyan teacher. So he's pupils, generally the poorest of the poor, sometimes orphans, sometimes only one parent. Basically, he's paid to teach, and he gives most of it to the school. So you think people like us, we earn our money and we've got to spend it all on ourselves to basically keep our heads above the water, sort of thing. This guy gives it basically most of it back to his school, and so this $1 million prize, he's going to do the same thing. He's a science and maths teacher, predominantly science, and his contributions, along with his colleagues to the school, it's increased the amount of people who want to be there, and it's also brought them. It's just a co-ed secondary college. It's brought them up to the national level. So it's got here his involvement in the science club has seen 60% of the students' projects qualify for national competitions, and I love this bit here. It said, last year the school placed first among public schools in the science and engineering fair. Students showed off a device that they had invented to allow blind and deaf people to measure objects. So get that, a real, something really useful coming out of the science, something he's encouraging, really, and teaching at this school. is bearing fruit and going to bear fruit. So, as a winner, I think he beat several hundred thousand of people that were nominated, and a short list of 10.
Yeah, my understanding was there was a field of 10,000 people that he beat in this to achieve this award as well, which is amazing.
Yeah, I'm just clicking through looking for it now. I don't know how many. So many people get nominated for it, and then they shortlist it to 10 people, and again, he was the cream of the crop of that. So he tends to give it back to the society that he came from. So a bit about Africa. According to the United Nations, it's got the youngest population in the world, but a lack of opportunity really within Africa. And Tapichi said that he believes Africa's young people don't have to be held back by the low expectations that sort of pervaded their continent. He says Africa will produce scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs, and their names will one day be famous in every corner of the world, and girls will be a huge part of the story. I believe science and technology can play a leading role in unlocking Africa's potential. It's morning in Africa. The skies are clear. This is Africa's time. Now, he's received support and encouragement from the president of Africa? Is that what they call them?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Yes, President Uhuru Kenyatta. His story is the story of Africa, young continent bursting with talent. So he's receiving plaudits, being lauded from all over the place. Yeah, that's our Kenyan brother Peter Tapichi.
Yeah, I was really amazed, and I remember when I texted this story in our little group chat to say that let's have a look at this story. And I remember that a couple of minutes later after you read it, you wrote legend, and it really is. And you were mentioning he's a teacher. I was very inspired by this story because this is a teacher who did something with limited resources and has uplifted a lot of young people. And he's very interested also in seeing girls being able to learn the sciences and also make a life for themselves as well. So I think any teacher who loves their students to the point where they can lift them out of the life that they're in and into a new life is an absolutely amazing thing. And we've just spoken about two Catholic religious who have been working in disadvantaged communities to do amazing things, and I think it says a lot about the goodness of the church and also what we can do with limited resources. Because it's not the money that we have. But it's also the heart that we put into it, and it's also the human connection that we have as well. And certainly, being a teacher or being an Indigenous elder, your primary job is to work with humans and help them improve themselves. And in our particular case, coming from a Catholic perspective, it's also improve their spiritual lives as well. So to see these kids and to see his passion for science, I mean. Talk about a contradiction according to people that don't understand faith very well. A religious brother, there he is robed on the stage in the photo I can see in front of me, receiving an award because he loves teaching kids science. It's not something you would expect to hear in the regular news, is it?
Not at all, no. I like the fact that he's got Hugh Jackman in the photo with him.
Yes, Wolverine.
But, yeah. But I mean, it's something. One of the driving forces between all of us going into podcasting was, especially Caroline, is not with us today, but the science and faith not being two mutually exclusive things or entities.
Yeah, and actually, talking about science and faith, why don't we talk now about science?
What a fine day for science.
You have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Can you reverse the polarity?
I'll do my best.
Science, 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 science. Science, 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 science. Yeah, I like science.
All right, Jared, are you ready for this?
Can I just ask?
Go ahead.
Why are we doing this without Caroline?
Yes, and this is the point
Caroline's probably asking that too. Why are we doing this without her?
I have no doubt when she listens to this, she'll say, why did they do it without me? It's the first thing she'll say. Hi, Caroline. So now is a good time probably to mention that obviously Caroline, our other co-host, and my sister obviously, is not with us today because she's been a bit under the weather. So during the week when we were talking about the topics that we'd have for this podcast. Caroline had a whole lot of different sciencey ones, and we thought, because this episode is coming out around Palm Sunday-ish, around, I think it would be the day before Palm Sunday in America, but in Australia it's always the Sunday when it comes out every fortnight. So Palm Sunday is the day when people look at this. We thought, let's look at the science of Easter, and in this case, how Easter is calculated by the vernal equinox and how it happens after the first full moon. And so we were just talking before the show about how you and I were reading this article and scratching our heads going, what?
Just been rereading it and trying to get our heads around dates, times and rules, etc., etc.
Yeah.
We're going to do our best to identify why Easter is when it is this year.
Yeah. So buckle up, everyone, because this is going to be very interesting. And I'm sure Caroline can do some corrections for us in our next episode. So essentially, now look, I think most Catholics generally know that, and they'd find out, on the internet and Facebook, because it comes up every year, essentially, that the date of Easter, first of all, we know it's not the same day every year. It can happen between sort of towards the end of March to the end of April. So usually around March 22nd to April 25th, these are the dates in which Easter can fall. And the reason is for this is because Pope Gregory the 13th, he decreed in 1582, as part of the Gregorian calendar, which is kind of the calendar that we follow now, that Easter would be after what's termed the first Paschal full moon, or essentially the first full moon in spring. Now, we're obviously in in autumn, but in the Northern Hemisphere, so all of you Northern Hemisphere folks, you would know exactly what this means. So essentially, and I think it's very Eurocentric as well. So it's really to do with Europe, and that would make sense considering 1582 and so on. So essentially, in Europe, when it's spring, after the first full moon in spring, the Sunday following would be Easter, and that includes if that first full moon was on a Sunday, then the following Sunday would be Easter. Jared, how am I going so far?
Reasonable.
I can
follow you.
Thank you. All right. Can anyone else?
And potentially quite accurate.
Yeah. So what that means, though, is that Easter should have already happened. It should have been on March the 24th this year, because we've had the first full moon of spring for 2019, and it hasn't happened. So what this comes down to, apparently, according to this science article, are some clerical loopholes. So this is where it's going to hurt. So here we go. Basically, according to the ecclesiastical rules of the church, the vernal equinox is fixed on March the 21st. Now, the vernal equinox is when the Earth's equator passes through the center of the sun. So, Jared, do you want to throw to me what you said before about what that kind of means?
So, Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere get the same amount of sunlight.
Right. So,
is what we believed it to mean.
Yeah, that's how we interpret it, which goes with the changing of seasons, around the world. So the opposite seasons in the Northern and Southern Hemisphere. So what happened was, though, is that the vernal equinox has actually happened later, I think it is, or is it earlier, I should say. And what it means is that Easter has to be pushed back a month. That's essentially the rule of the church. So, for example, we've seen vernal equinoxes happening on March the 20th rather than the 21st, and it just throws everything out of whack. So essentially, we now have Easter happening on April what was it? The 21st? Is it the 21st this year?
Yeah, Easter Sunday is 21st.
21st this year. So therefore, that's why Easter is not happening as early as it technically should. It's an ecclesiastical loophole. So how do we go with that, Jerry? Do you think we got that message across pretty clearly?
Yeah. Basically moons, cheese. No, don't say cheese.
They're not made of cheese. Yeah, that's right. Actually,
basically the timing of the full moon.
Yeah. So let me move into more comfortable territory now. Speaking about the moon, because just another story that happened to come up during the week that we were talking about before the show, and that is that I was watching a video on Facebook, and it was Mike Pence, who is the Vice President of the United States. He gave a speech to NASA, and he challenged them to get astronaut boots on the ground, on the moon, I should say, not on the ground, on the moon, in 5 years' time. And so I was watching it, and there was this massive cheer. All the NASA staff, everything are cheering, getting excited. And then I think it was the president of NASA, is the president or the leader, the boss, the CEO, whatever you want to call it. He responded and said, "Yes, we reckon we can do it, and we think we can do it earlier than that." So in a way, I'm kind of excited by this news, which I'm sure, by the way, they discussed beforehand. The vice president's not going to come in and say, "Get to the moon in 5 years." And he's not, we're going to have someone say, "Oh, sorry, we can't do that. Can we have 10?" But essentially, what I'm excited by is that we could have this kind of the same excitement as the first man-moon landing in the 1960s. And I remember hearing, because I clearly wasn't born, but hearing my parents talk about it. I don't know if your parents maybe have spoken about it too. And other people talking about how everyone gathered around either in their classrooms and watched it on TV or at home with their families, depending on which part of the world they were in. And they all gathered around and watched the moon landing together. I'm thinking that'd be fascinating if I could do that with my family or with my students at school. What do you reckon, Jerry?
Yeah, well, it's almost 50 years it'd be just about since the last, or is it longer than that? Was it 69? Probably 55 years, I think.
Yeah, yep.
Since that time, we've had 55 years worth of, gaining knowledge, finding better parts or materials, doing things so much, supposedly so much better. It'd be great to compare the two together.
Yeah, and I think Yeah, I think they were talking about reusable rockets, which is the whole Elon Musk SpaceX thing that they were experimenting with. Thank God they're working properly now, because previous videos of their early attempts were simply rockets landing on ships and exploding and things like that. But they've certainly worked it all out now. Yeah. So, Jared, let's take a deep breath now, or I should say a sigh of relief. We've survived a science segment without Caroline.
Well, we've survived it. We'll see how well we did. We'll get assessed in a future episode, I'm sure.
Yeah, and also
when Caroline's back.
Yeah, and our listeners as well. If you want to tell us how you think we went, we'd be very humbled by your feedback, I'm sure. So
tell us where we went wrong. Don't
all of it,
because we're sure we did.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on while we still can, with our heads held up high, and let's go and talk about apps.
The Enterprise computer system is controlled by 3 primary main processor cores, cross-linked with a redundant Meliquartz RAM stack, 14 kiloquad interface modules. The core element is based on an FTL nanoprocessor with 25 bilateral calolactrals, with 20 of those being slaved into the primary Heisentram terminal. Now, you do know what a bilateral calolactral is.
Well, of course I do.
So, Jerry, this is our segment where we talk about apps, and usually what happens is we pick 2. One that is useful and helps productivity, or useful in some kind of way, and one that, is a bit more addictive, a bit of a fun time waster. So, Jared, what apps have you got for us today?
All right, so for my productivity app, I'm going to go down a similar path as I have before and pick an app that's used in my daughter's school. I don't know what's prompted it, but it seems to be moving towards the paperless school. So not quite a paperless office, but a paperless school. I've talked previously about apps called Care Monkey, School Bag, which you get all your data through the app, school forms that would otherwise be left at the bottom of the library bag and the like. What Sign Pro is when you're a visitor on the premises, you basically have to sign in. Go through the whole why are you here, name, address, phone, email address, etc., so that you can be registered on their system. And I've joined a line to do such a thing at her school, and the line's 3 or 4 deep, which doesn't sound like too many, but no one knows how to fill out these forms. What do I press here? Where do I go? etc., and I'm sitting in the line thinking, I need to get somewhere here, and these people are, and they've got to follow protocol. You're a visitor on school property. You've got to be registered here. So while I was waiting, I had plenty of time to myself, and I noticed next to the sign-in spot a section saying, get the app and sign in automatically. So, as I said, still had plenty of time on my hands, still too deep by then. Downloaded the app called Sign Pro, and basically that's where you enter all your details, into this app. Name, phone number, and I'm not sure if I followed much more than that. And then obviously where you're signing into, which for me was the school. and then hold it up to the QR symbol that was provided, and I'm signed in.
Boom, you're signed in.
Yeah. And so it spits out, obviously you need the QR symbol to activate it. So then it spat out a bit of paper with my name on it, stuck it on me, and I managed to cut ahead.
Fantastic. You cut the line. You cut the line at school.
Yeah, I'll go back to those days.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do a Chinese swap and double dare. And
yeah, that's like we used to, everyone trying to cut the line in the canteen because it would take too long to get anything. So is that...
And all the good stuff, all the hot food would be gone.
Yeah, all
the
good...
If you waited at the back.
Yeah, that's right. Is that the app, the name of the app is actually spelled SINE, is that correct?
Yeah, like the maths term.
Oh, yeah, of course it is. Yeah, I should have known that. Yeah, I'm not a maths person or a science person, apparently. So, yeah, because at my school, so I'm a high school teacher, so secondary school students, and our 3 campuses, we have a similar system for everyone, teachers, guests, parents, whatever, to sign in and sign out, students too. And it's essentially the same kind of thing. So, but this one is not with a phone. It's like they'll have an iPad set up and you type in, your details and whatever. And a good friend of mine from work, we actually kind of have a bit of a joke about the idea that, because we have to visit different schools every so often. And so everyone's got this system now. But what it does is, on the iPad version of this, is that it takes a photo of the person who's signed in as well. Does it do that with yours?
Okay, so we might be talking about similar things because Caitlin's school also has the iPad sign-in, and that's what's stumping everyone.
Ah, that's the one that's stumping everyone. I see, yeah.
So they're all typing in on the iPad,
yeah.
And so then it will take a photo of you. So yes, you got your own photo on the app, which will then spit out a photo, a photograph and your name on it.
Yep.
And essentially, it's a cue cutter.
Right. Yeah. That's very good. So when we have to take photos, so when my friend signs in and takes his photo, I kind of jump in over his shoulder. I'm just standing in the back, and he'll do the same, just looking inconspicuous in the background, but with the eyeballs looking right at the camera.
Just photo bombing.
Yeah, just photo bombing, pretty much. Yeah. But jokes aside, from a usefulness perspective, I was thinking about how this could be useful, possibly in larger Catholic parishes, because we're big on security and things like that now. And I'm not saying parishioners sign in, but I was thinking. People who come to parishes, like for example, if you've got a maintenance person or a work person, like a plumber or something coming from outside, having them sign in to make sure that that's all sorted out. I was thinking youth groups as well. So now I'm not sure if this software is useful, but some kind of sign-in software where parents drop off their kids at a youth group meeting, and for example, you sign them in digitally. And sign them out digitally, so there are records of when they were there and when they weren't. Just in our safety conscious era, especially in our society as well, where safety is becoming a big thing now. This could be useful, some kind of application like this. And there are, Sign, I'm assuming, is probably going to be an expensive, large organization kind of app, but I'm sure there are smaller versions of things like this which could be used for safety and security at particular venues as well.
Yeah, and whether there's versions out there, I was going to say whether there's versions out there for when you're not for profit. Excuse me while I struggle to get that one out. Or when you're not a commercial venture, when you just need something to be able to monitor or identify who is where on your premises, because it's commercially aimed as well. So the app itself, when it's with its blurb about what it does, talks about meetings, talks about site work. So you probably have something like this at a construction site, so building site, so that people know who's in and what they're there for. But my use and my exposure to it's been at a school, and I agree. There's where we're responsible for within our church and within our Catholic community. Certainly, there's a place for something like this to be able to know who's where and where the people are that you're supposed to be responsible for.
Yeah. And I love that we live in an age where you can, book movie tickets, cut lines that way, or, book, remember, like, we go to IMAX whenever there's a Star Wars film that comes out. So, we buy 10 tickets and book 10 seats so we know exactly where we're going to sit a month before the movie comes out.
Funny enough, we end up on the same row as each other.
Yeah, coincidentally, like you and Caroline did. Yeah, that was good. Yeah. All right. So now, Jared, you have another app here, and this is your addictive time waster, have a bit of fun kind of app. And it's called Bible Word Puzzle. What's this all about?
Yeah, okay. So anyone who's ever seen an ad on their phone has probably seen advertising for one of these sort of things. They're not quite a dime a dozen, but there's plenty of them about. Basically, there's a certain number of words you got to find. Here are your letters. Trace your finger on the screen to make words out of the letters. I've seen plenty of variations on it. This one's a little different in that it's a Bible word puzzle. So the words, or some of them, and the puzzles are Christian-centered. So I sent you a screenshot earlier today, and so basically it was find, make words out of the following letters, and the letters were E, S, J, U, S in whatever order. Now, gee, what's that going to make?
That's a head scratcher.
So that was just a screenshot of what I got. So it'll refer to Christian or Catholic words such as the Son of God, and other related words. It's also got different puzzles that you'd be little time waster puzzles, like 4 pictures, 1 word, and it might have a picture of the cross, and it's got whatever letters you need to make that up. It's also got Bible quotes that you have to come up with the answer for.
Ooh.
So there's one that said, who were Noah's 3 sons? And based on our work on a previous podcast, I knew exactly who they were.
Yeah, was that Shem, Ham, and Japheth? How did I go with that?
Yeah.
Hey. Now I'm cheating because I've actually been teaching that in a class that I've had recently, and they're doing a test on it soon, so I should know it.
Yeah, so as I said, it's pretty similar. There's plenty of them out there where you make little words. My 2 problems with it, it's early days for me. 2 problems I got is that after each level, it wants to show me an ad.
Oh, of course.
Which you pay for the ads, they'll go away. That's it's what's going to happen. That's how these things keep themselves above the water, is they got paid ads. The second one, and I've got this problem with pretty much any word puzzle game, is that the early levels are too easy.
Of course, yeah.
And you can't skip to the hard level. So it's, when you see the game on an ad, it's usually got something difficult and complex. And I consider myself somewhat clever. I like clever puzzles. And then when you start the game, you got 2 and 3 letter words that you're supposed to figure out what it is. So as I said, it's still early days. I'm hoping my patience on playing the game is going to pay off, and I'll get more harder puzzles eventually. But at the moment, I'm still stuck on the early puzzles.
I want to see a word scramble where the answer is Nebuchadnezzar and see who can get that. There's a couple of biblical names that might stump a few people, I reckon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or the different nationalities as well that existed back then.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, go Mesopotamians or something. Yeah. All right. Well, I might just jump into mine now. So my productive one, I did do a fitness app the last time we did this, which was the You Are Your Own Gym. I think it had a different name to that. But this one is also a fitness one that I found, which is a little bit simpler and possibly a bit more useful in some ways as well. So essentially, the reason why I'm thinking about this is, so if people don't know, I do karate. Now, I'm not awesome, all right? I fall over and get beaten up. That's pretty much what I do at every karate lesson. However,
what color belt are you? Everyone needs to know that.
I'm a purple belt, which is how do I say? It's just over halfway towards. No, it's over halfway towards black belt. So essentially, what would happen?
So you're nearly a black belt, really.
Well,
is what I'm getting at. You're nearly a black belt.
I'm still years off, like maybe 2 years off. But the way it works is from my purple belt, the next grading which I'm doing, which is in August, which I need to hopefully be ready for, is blue belt. And then the blue belt is the one, and then there's about, I think 6 months after the blue belt, you get your brown belt. And then obviously a brown belt starts the journey to black belt. So, in about 2 to 2.5 years, I could, if all goes well, have a black belt. But
yeah, so in terms of colors, you're more than halfway.
I'm more than halfway, yeah.
But in terms of time and difficulty, etc.,
yep,
perhaps not so.
Yeah, not so much. Yeah. So here's the big but that goes with getting your black belts. In our grading book, it tells you what you need to know for every belt level. So there's a book and it says, for blue belt, this, and this. And each one has a fitness component. You can't just earn your belts. You've got to have some fitness behind it as well. So Jared, to achieve the black belt in your grading, you need to be able to do, get this, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 star jumps. So
over how many days?
In the one session that goes for a couple of hours. Now, what they have done in the past is they've broken them up. So there's, for example, at one grading it was I think it was about 45 push-ups or something like that. But we didn't do it in one go. We did 20 and 25.
So reps.
Yeah, reps. Yeah. So, but essentially, gradings can be quite energy intensive, because not only you're doing push-ups and sit-ups and star jumps, but you're also doing, you're sparring with other people, which is quite intensive. You're, You're grappling, which is where, someone holds you on the ground and you have to try and get out of it and all that kind of stuff. So and plus all the actual techniques that you have to know. So it's quite intense. So this app is called 22 Push-Ups. And the whole idea of this app is to improve your push-up performance. And I was talking last episode about how push-ups are actually beneficial for your health, that how I think studies of men who can do 40 push-ups shows that they have healthier or less risk of heart disease and things like that. And so what it does is you get the app, and this is the part that I think is very interesting, is you put it on the ground facing up, and then you put your chest over it in the push-up position, and every time you go down and up again, it registers that you've done a push-up and it counts. So you have a counter on it. The thing is, though, we're not talking about just going halfway down and then up again. These are chest to floor push-ups. So essentially, your chest has to cover or has to be registered by the camera on your phone, by the camera sensor. So if you go down and you are a centimeter approximately above your phone, it will register the push-up when you go back up again. If you go down and you go a little bit higher than that, when you go up, you've actually wasted a push-up because it won't register it. So what it's trying to do is get you to do 22 push-ups, chest to floor, and do them properly. So it's about the push-up technique, but also about the strength to do more and more push-ups. Because what happens then is that you can increase the number that you want to do, or you can even decrease as well. But you can increase or decrease. And as a reward at the end, it's actually not much of a reward, but it actually films you while you do your push-ups, so you can see your face going, getting redder and redder as you go up and down. But what is also good about it is also that you can throw in sit-ups, and there are other movements you can do as well. And there's also a paid version, which allows you to do even more exercises. So I thought that was quite innovative. What do you think, Jared? Do you think you'll download 22 push-ups and have a go?
Well, push-ups aren't really my forte. I've got a lot to push up relative to my arm strength. I did look up the app though, just to get an idea of it. Now, the name 22 push-ups isn't indicative of how many you need to do or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you look up the story of how it came about?
No, I didn't actually look up the name. What the reason for the name?
Probably have to go and I've obviously would have crossed it off of my tabs open. But from what I understand, it is based on the fact that 22 ex-servicemen and women commit suicide daily.
Yes, you're right. Yes, that is and
good. So you are right.
Yes, and I think some of the money actually goes towards a charity to sort that out, isn't it?
Yeah. And so you were talking a little earlier about the facial contortions, etc.
Yes.
The reason, or one of the reasons to be able to do that, is after doing your 22 push-ups, then you post an image of yourself and tag yourself in there as 22 push-ups. And helping spread, I suppose, awareness of PTSD.
So it actually advocates for returned servicemen and women who may have PTSD or things like that.
I'm pretty sure it's returned.
Yeah, that actually motivates me to want to do 22 push-ups more often. Then that's good.
Yeah. Because 22 push-ups, when you look at it, I mean, what did you say was for black belt was 100, and I'm sure it's 22 that might get you halfway to orange or something like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's not easy to do if you're not used to doing it, but for people who are reasonably fit, 22 push-ups is I can do that. That's no problem. What do I need to do? What do I need an app to do 22 push-ups for? But it goes a little further and deeper than that.
I love the motivation. I'm more motivated now than before, but I love the motivation that it's not just your fitness, but you're actually learning to achieve 22 push-ups and you're helping people at the same time. Oh, there you go. Yeah. So there it is, our listeners. You can learn some push-ups and make a difference in our servicemen and women's lives as well. Fantastic.
After you finish doing your 22 push-ups, what do you do then, Lindsay?
Learn 100.
No. I meant your next app.
Oh, the next app. Wow. So what do I do? So after I do my 22 push-ups, it's time to waste some time. So my time-wasting addictive app is actually called. I had two, so I'll do the other one next time. Today's one is called Robbery Bob, and I'm not sure if I should be sharing this one because it won't be a bad influence on people. This one is a puzzle game, and I actually love games where, and when I say puzzle, I mean not like Jewels and Orbs and things like that, but it's a stealthy kind of game. I actually love, my favorite kind of games are ones that involve stealth. So can you remember, good old Metal Gear Solid and things like that? But
oh yeah, that's probably the king of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. There's no exclamation marks above your head when you get caught or anything in this one. However, the idea of this game is that you're a robber, a thief, who is in prison, and one day this shady character comes along and he gets you out of prison. But as a favor to him, you have to rob houses for him. All right. So, and he's got some kind of agenda that I haven't worked out yet either. But what you do then is he takes you to a house and you have to sneak in, and there's an object, like it might be a painting or it might be a bag of money, or, it might be, someone's song sheet music or something. There's all these weird and wonderful things that you have to steal. And so when you go into the house, you have to stealthily creep around, and it's from a bird's eye view. And you have to, you walk into different rooms, and there's other things that you steal to get points. Like it had chewing gum and all this, ridiculously silly things like that. A kitchen fork, all these other things that you steal.
Empty wallets.
Yeah. Actually, that is one of them too. Yeah. And if you steal everything in the house, because you get a 3-star rating at the end. So if you get everything within a certain amount of time, you get 3-star ratings.
Time would be a matter too. Yep.
Yeah. But there are complications, obviously. So one of them is that there are people inside the house, and you can see their walking path, and so you have to time when they walk so that you can get into the next room. The other one, which I find quite funny, is that there are dogs in the house, and they're not fierce dogs, but when they see you, they bark and they come up to you like they love you. So you have to, there's a love heart above their head when they see you. So you have to kind of lead the dog into another room and then close the door behind it, and then the poor dog sits there with a broken heart. There's all this, but if it sees you and it loves you, it barks, and that alerts the other people in the house to come and see what's going on. So it's very, very cheeky like that. And the other thing is, if you get caught, the people in the house run to you, and then you, in a very Looney Tunes kind of fashion, a big cloud of smoke appears around you as they beat you up. And that does include the cliched grandmother with a rolling pin as well. So but I thought it's a lot of fun. Now the thing is, just like your word puzzle one, it has lots of ads. So you complete a level, and then an ad for something else comes up. So you do have to deal with that as well. Yeah. So those are my apps. What do you reckon, Jerry? You want to download some Robbery Bob and see how you go?
Yeah, I've had a look at that one as well. Did you get they got the tagline on there?
No, what was the tagline?
Man of Steel.
Oh,
STEAL.
Oh, that's so bad. Very good.
Sounds like, this one's a very one that likes to make fun of stuff.
Yeah.
With little gags and the humor of, picking up junk for points.
Yeah, it's very tongue in cheek.
Plastic forks.
Yeah, it's a bit of a laugh while you play. Yeah. All right.
I'm guessing the movement around is just finger on the screen sort of thing.
Yes, yeah.
I imagine.
Yeah, pretty much. Just, sneak around on the screen. And you can run as well, like sprint, but if you sprint, obviously everyone hears you, but you might need to sprint for some reason. Like a grandma with a rolling pin chasing you out of her house. Yeah. All right. So why don't we talk about some feedback, Jerry? Because we've actually had some listener feedback, which is really exciting.
And we don't have a jingle for it though, do we?
No, we don't. No, we'll just no jingles. We'll just make one up. But I wanted to say thank you to our listeners who are providing us with some feedback and comments. We love to hear them, and if you do share with us, we'll share them on the show as well. So the first feedback was from Laurie on SQPN's Facebook page. So SQPN posts our episodes on Facebook for people to click and go to. So Laurie was responding there. And this was to the episode that Caroline and I did a little while back. And we talked about tipping, and we talked about how a waiter in, I think it was Wichita in the United States, he got excited because he thought he had a $20 tip left for him on the table, but it ended up being just a Bible tract, and he was very disappointing and took to Twitter to talk about it. And so Caroline and I were talking about how that's kind of bad evangelization. But however, Laurie introduced the tipping system because I did confess to being a little bit ignorant about how tipping works in the United States. But apparently it's correct to leave about 15 to 20% of the bill, of the subtotal of the bill, if the service was good. If you think the service was a little bit less than good, it might be about 10% instead. Yeah, and also there are people who are very generous who will pay the tip for someone else, or they'll do larger tips as well. So they might do large anonymous tips. And I think I've read there was a story about a guy who tipped a waiter or a waitress $10,000 in gratitude. It was just the right waiter at the right time who received that $10,000. So that's
only 5,000 Bible tracts.
Yeah, instead of that's right, exactly. Yeah, that would have been majorly disappointing. And Laurie also had agreed with us as well. She said the Jesus tract, not only not good evangelization tool, but just plain tacky as well. And I think we agree with her on that one. And I've got one more as well. This wasn't left on SQPN's Facebook page. This was left on, now this is going to come out of nowhere. So I've talked about Clash of Clans before and how it's my other addictive app, which by the way, I'm actually not using during Lent, which is, I'm like a coffee addict with no coffee at the moment. I'm getting the shakes when I can't play it. But there is a Facebook group that the clan I belong to on Clash of Clans has made. And this was particularly because I asked if I could jump out and then jump back into the clan later on at the end of Lent. So they made a Facebook page so we can keep our connection now, and people can do that when they'd like to. And Charbel, who is one of the players, and also has been very, very kind because he's been sharing our podcasts on the Facebook page for our Clash of Clans thing as well. So I thank you so much for doing that. And he said that he likes to listen to us when he's commuting, and he enjoyed episode 6. I was also saying that the tipping system in the United States is there because there's a kind of a strange loophole in the law where people are allowed to be paid less than minimum wage, and it's then compensated for by tipping. So that's kind of how the system works there. So I've been very educated on American tipping. Were you familiar with much of it at all, Jared, at all?
Not about the percentages. I have heard, though, that at least in Australia, comparative pricing for a meal is less. So I had an actual client of ours who was over there for goodness knows why, it doesn't really matter. They were saying that for a burger, lunch meal or something like that at the time, and this is going back a few years, cost them about $5 or $6, and for the same meal over here, you'd be looking at 10.
Correct.
In the same currency, so $10 Australian here, $6 Australian over there, and whatever that translated to. And he said that's where you, at least in Australia, you don't feel bad about tipping because you're getting a cheap meal than you would have over here.
Do you remember there was a cheeky Australian TV commercial, probably when we were much, much younger, and there was a boy, like a young boy, standing at the door, and he held it open for his dad, and then he put his hand out for a tip. He says, can I give you a tip? And the dad said, do your homework and be good to your mother. Do you remember that at all?
That brings back. Wow.
Yeah, memories. I know, wasn't that an old one? All right. So thank you so much to all of you who've left feedback, and we'd appreciate more, and we'd love to interact with you that way and hear your comments on some of the things that we talk about as well. Please be nice to us if you do want to comment on Jared and I, our science acumen, which is not very, very high. I'm sure Caroline will have a lot to say.
Please don't expect that's what it's usually like.
Yeah, that's right. It's usually much better quality when Caroline's around. Thank you very much for listening today. Remember that you can like the posts about us on the SQPN Facebook page so that we can get noticed by a few more people, and also share posts when SQPN puts our episodes up. We'd really appreciate it if you did that for us. And also on Twitter, you can also retweet our episodes. And on those forums, also please leave us comments so that we can share them with our audience, and also mention you as a gratitude for your comments. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcasting app. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and many, many more. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to hit the bell to get notifications when a new episode comes out. You can also leave us feedback directly on the SQPN website as well, which is sqpn.com. And for us, just add /Oz, which is OZ. You can also email us at catholicsofOz@sqpn.com to send us more feedback there. And all of the relevant links from the stories that we talked about today will be in our show notes. So, thank you very much, Jerry, for joining us for episode 7.
Yep, I've been a good one. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And thank you also to our listeners. We'll see you next time for episode 8. In the meantime, my name is Lindsay Sant, and thank you for listening to The Catholics of Oz.